Welcome to a place where family love comes with fine print and silence has a price. Here, support isn't always support. Sometimes it's control dressed up as generosity. Tonight's story begins with money that looked like love, a dinner table turned into a courtroom, and a husband whose loyalty existed only on the surface. What happens when financial help becomes a weapon? When a mother's rage explodes in front of everyone who helped hide the truth? When a marriage built on manipulation finally collapses under its own secrets? These are the stories where walking away looks like defeat, until the consequences hit louder than any arguments ever could. Hidden betrayals, public humiliation, double lives exposed, and the quiet exits that dismantle entire families. If you think you've heard it all, stay right here, because this story proves one thing: control never survives the truth. At the beginning, the money felt like love. Bills paid before being asked, groceries magically stocked, a roof provided with a reminder that gratitude should be constant. Family called it support, generosity, blessing. What it really was became clear only later: ownership disguised as care. Every expense carried an unspoken rule: silence was the price. Questions about missing funds were brushed off with laughter. Concerns about late nights were softened with deposits. Whenever doubt surfaced, a transfer followed. Money didn't just solve problems, it erased them. Or so it seemed. The husband learned quickly how useful that system was. Apologies never required effort when cash could do the talking. Secrets stayed buried because digging felt ungrateful. Over time, dependence replaced partnership. Every decision needed approval. Every disagreement ended with the reminder of who paid for what. Even loyalty felt rented. The husband played the role perfectly: devoted in public, distant in private, protected by a financial shield no one dared challenge. Family praised his hard work, unaware that someone else's security was being used to find his freedom. Cracks appeared in small moments: a receipt for a hotel across town, a charge for jewelry that never came home, late-night calls silenced too quickly. When confronted, the answer was always the same: everything provided, nothing owed. Money turned betrayal into entitlement. Love became leverage. What hurt most wasn't the infidelity, it was how confidently it was financed. Joint accounts quietly drained, savings meant for the future redirected into secrecy. While lectures about responsibility filled the house, someone else was being entertained on borrowed trust. The worst part? Family knew pieces of it and chose comfort over truth. As long as the bills were paid, the lies were forgiven. Control tightened when resistance showed. Threats disguised as concern. Support offered, then withdrawn, then offered again like a leash. The message was clear: obedience kept the lights on. Independence meant darkness. But numbers don't lie forever. Statements tell stories. Patterns expose habits. And once the truth was seen clearly, the power shifted. What was meant to control became evidence. What was used to silence became proof. Money was never love. It was the mask hiding everything that wasn't. And once that mask slipped, nothing could buy silence again. That dinner was never meant to be a meal. The table was set like a stage, plates arranged neatly, candles lit too carefully, as if a carrot could soften what was coming. Family gathered with forced smiles, pretending nothing had been wrong for years. The husband sat comfortably, confident, unaware that the night had been planned long before the food was served. The first course passed quietly. Then the questions began, sharp, pointed, aimed only one direction. Why the accounts never balanced, why certain bills were paid late while others disappeared entirely. The mother's voice carried a sweetness that didn't match her eyes. Every sentence landed heavier than the last, each one peeling back resentment stored up through years of financial control and quiet obedience. What followed wasn't anger. It was precision, a public accounting of sacrifices made, money given, dignity swallowed, each contribution listed like evidence in a trial. The humiliation was intentional. Family watched frozen as generosity was rewritten as ownership and support exposed as leverage. The husband laughed at first, brushing it off like a misunderstanding. That laugh died quickly. Receipts were pulled from a purse and placed on the table. Hotel charges, jewelry store invoices, transfers to unfamiliar accounts. Dates aligned perfectly with business trips that never were. The room shifted. Forks stopped moving. Breathing felt louder. The husband reached for explanations, work expenses, favors for friends, but the lies sounded thin in the open air. The mother's rage finally surfaced, not loud, but devastating. Years of covering for him spilled out in clipped sentences, protecting the family name, paying off mistakes, keeping affairs quiet so neighbors wouldn't talk. The betrayal cut deeper knowing it had been managed, not accidental. Everyone at that table had been part of the lie. The breaking point came with a single sentence, delivered without hesitation. Support was over. Protection was gone. The house was no longer a refuge funded by silence. The command followed immediately, sharp and final, echoing through the room. Standing up felt unreal, but calm replaced shock. No pleading, no apology, just acceptance that humiliation had revealed what love never had. Walking out wasn't weakness, it was release. The door closed and the truth stayed behind to finish the execution. For years, loyalty was performed like a routine, predictable, convincing, and rehearsed. Morning kisses, shared calendars, polite laughter at family gatherings. On the surface, everything looked steady. Underneath, an entirely different life ran parallel, hidden so well it almost deserved admiration. Almost. The first cracks appeared in the margins, phone calls taken outside, screens turned face down, passwords changed without explanation. There was always a story ready: work pressure, exhausted days, harmless privacy. Trust filled in the gaps where answers should have been. That trust paid for more than groceries and rent. It funded freedom. Bank statements told a different story. Small withdrawals at first, easy to overlook. Then larger transfers labeled as expenses that never added up. A second email account surfaced by accident. Messages weren't just flirtatious, they were detailed, intimate, ongoing. Promises made elsewhere using money earned together. Emotional energy invested in someone whose name never crossed the dinner table. The betrayal wasn't impulsive, it was organized. Trips explained as conferences matched hotel bookings for two. Gifts claimed as bonuses never arrived home. Even arguments felt scripted, designed to create distance when guilt ran too close. The marriage wasn't a partnership, it was a cover. Worse than the infidelity was the manipulation wrapped around it. Gaslighting came easily. Doubt was labeled insecurity. Suspicion turned into accusations of ingratitude. Every concern was met with reassurance funded by shared accounts, as if money could substitute honesty. Love became conditional, offered only when silence was maintained. Family noticed pieces but ignored the pattern. Stability mattered more than truth. Appearances were protected at all costs. The husband relied on that. Confidence grew with each lie that survived unchallenged. He believed himself untouchable, shielded by charm, excuses, and money that wasn't entirely his. But lies leave residue: a forgotten receipt, a message sent too late, a name repeated in sleep. Once everything aligned, the image shattered fast. The double life wasn't hidden anymore. It was obvious, calculated, sustained by deception and arrogance. Confrontation wasn't explosive. It was quiet, surgical. Evidence laid out without emotion. Every denial collapsed under its own weight. The realization hit hardest when apologies never came, only regret at being exposed. Loyalty didn't crumble all at once. It dissolved, piece by piece, until nothing remained worth saving. And once the truth stepped into the light, the life built on shadows had nowhere left to hide. Walking away looked small from the outside. No raised voice, no dramatic announcement, just a packed bag, a quiet glance around a house that had never truly felt like home, and a door closing without force. To them, it must have looked like surrender, the moment control finally worked. That assumption became the most expensive mistake they ever made. Silence followed the exit, and it unsettled everyone. No calls begging to come back, no messages trying to smooth things over. The absence spoke louder than any argument ever had. Behind that calm was preparation. Copies of financial records secured, dates noted, patterns traced. Years of manipulation had taught patience better than any lesson could. The husband unraveled first. Without someone to manage appearances, missed payments surfaced, accounts flagged, questions raised at work when reimbursements no longer matched expenses. That second life, so carefully balanced, collapsed under its own weight. The woman he'd hidden so well began asking for more than promises. Suddenly, charm couldn't cover debt. The family panicked next. Control depended on access, and access was gone. Lawyers replaced threats. Accusations replaced concern. Support, once offered generously, turned into demands for explanations they weren't entitled to. Their illusion depended on silence, and silence was no longer for sale. What they never anticipated was how truth travels when no one is protecting lies anymore. Banks called, relatives whispered, friends connected dots they'd ignored for years. The narrative they'd maintained cracked, then split wide open. Financial generosity was re-examined, sacrifices redefined. The power structure they'd built quietly turned against itself. The husband tried to regain control. Apologies, then anger, then blame. None of it worked. Evidence doesn't negotiate. Trust, once broken, doesn't respond to gifts or guilt. Each attempt to reassert dominance only exposed more deception. The more he spoke, the more the truth surfaced. Walking away hadn't been weakness. It had been strategy. Distance gave clarity. Freedom allowed consequences to unfold naturally. Nothing needed to be forced. Lies rot when left alone. The house remained standing. The family name survived, barely, but authority dissolved, replaced by accountability they'd avoided for years. Leaving quietly didn't end the story. It finally let the truth finish it. If this story pulled you in, don't let it end here. Like the video to support stories that expose hidden truths, and subscribe for more real, emotional family dramas where silence breaks and consequences speak. Turn on notifications so you never miss a story where walking away changes everything. See you in the next one.